What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chris C. Pups Garage, bringing you another edition of the Car Concierge Show. On today's show, we're going to revisit the Fisker situation with MKBHD and autofocus. Really been checking those out. We're also going to check out another review he did of Vinfast EV cars. I want to do that review because I myself was thinking about or interested in getting a Vinfast. I had one for like 2 weeks, driving it, and it seemed like a normal car. It did have a lot of warning lights that kept on coming on that would just go off randomly. So, but other than that, it seemed like a regular car. It seemed like to me a EV that was really just trying to be ready. That's what I really thought of the Vinfast. But on today's show, we're going to go over the review that Autofocus did on the Vinfast. We're going to talk also about the future of the street mechanic. And when it comes to like electronic vehicles, when it comes to pretty much all vehicles coming down the pipeline here in the future and have already come out, there's a great desire or need for manufacturers to do away with the street mechanic, the Midases, the Midakeys, all these locations, because of course they take away from the bottom line. I always say that the service department of any dealership is vital to its survival. Service shops, I would say, probably bring in at least 50 to 60% of the profits into most dealerships, depending on the size, of course, because with the uptick in online vehicle sales, the uptick in, used car dealers, the manufacturers or the dealerships are just not selling as many cars as they used to. This is just a simple fact. They're employing less sales force, pretty much just weaning out the ones that ain't getting nothing done because just not as many customers going over to the dealerships looking to buy cars these days. So, let's get into the show. First up, we're going to check out this Vinfast situation and see what MKHBD is thinking about the Vinfast cars. And then we'll talk about the future of the backdoor mechanic or street mechanic, as it were, and what the future holds for them. Then we'll get into that Fisker final say situation on are they really dead, and if we should turn off the check engine light for Fisker. All right, so let's check it out. Go. All right, here we go.
This is the car that a lot of you guys sent me after the Fisker review, where I mentioned that was the worst car that I've ever reviewed, or at least the worst car experience I've ever had. And I didn't want to make this review about the Fisker again, because that's kind of a crazy comparison. Oh, which one is the worst car? Is this one actually worse? But a lot of you guys asked for this. This is the Vinfast VF8. This is a car that's just now showing up in the US. You might not have ever heard of Vinfast, but Vinfast has this whole lineup. It's going to be like the VF5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. All of them SUVs, the 9 being the biggest 3-row, but this is basically a Model Y-sized electric crossover. And it has a shocking amount of similarities with the Fisker, I'll put it that way. But it's different. I'll just walk you through it. So this is a very popular size to make a new vehicle, right? So I don't blame them for trying. Model Y is the most popular selling vehicle in the world, so why not make a competitor to that one? And this one, it has a lot of shades of good looks. I think the front end's a little bit complicated, but the headlights are here, the blinkers are here, it's got these DRLs. Vinfast logo in the middle, and I assume the VF stands for Vinfast, so I think that makes this the Vinfast 8. But you get around to the side, and this is a pretty reasonable looking vehicle. I get shades of Mach E from this angle, from this front 3/4. You got your charging port up here. These aero caps on the wheels, pretty normal looking. There's 2 trims of this, the Eco and the Plus. So this is the Plus, so it'll have a little more horsepower. But we get to the back, and it's a totally normal looking hatchback. And I actually think some of these taillights, again, are bringing Mustang back, but that's the back of this. This whole vehicle, this whole thing starts in the, I think, the mid-40s, $40-something thousand, and then the Plus is like 50,000 plus. To me, the philosophy behind this vehicle was, yeah, we're gonna have to make something cheap, and they kind of almost did, but it brings back the age-old smartphone question. Would you rather buy a brand new, cheap piece of tech or a depreciated, older flagship? And this one makes a good argument for the depreciated, older flagship. But let's start with some of the good stuff, right? So this is the key. It's black and white, so it matches the car, right? To me, it looks a little bit upside down, but whatever. You can unlock, and you hit that back button, and you can get into the back. This is a power opening and closing liftgate, and it's a pretty good amount of space. And when you want to cross over, you probably want it for utilities. So these back seats, they do sort of lean back a little bit if you want, and when they're not leaned back, you get more space. Charging equipment, room for a full spare. Okay, so that's a good fundamental you don't always see. A lot of plastic in here. I'll get to the interior materials in a second, but hey, power opening, power closing. It's a good start. But then there's a little bit of good stuff to the back seat too, so I'll jump in. Regular door handles, they don't like flush recess into the back of the car, so probably less likely to break. And then you get these sort of brown...
Real quick, and I did watch a little bit of this review earlier, but the door handles. The concept of the receding door handle that most of the Teslas have, that we see in other EV vehicles. It's almost, for me, it's almost like Vinfast. Of course, here's the thing. The object for Vinfast for the door handles has to be that, that, like you said, it was a vehicle that they wanted to make as cheap as possible, because this EV race is going to be extreme, and a quality keyword EV vehicle is going to do great numbers, and of course the recessing of the door handles is a very expensive process. It's a very, very expensive process to repair. So putting the normal, as I would put it, door handles on this car, what I thought was a good idea. Specifically, in a situation where you're trying to save cost in the making of the vehicle. All right, let's keep going.
And black interior seats, so a little bit more visually interesting than some others. And then I jump in, and I'm behind the 6'3" passenger position, and I actually do have some space, a little bit of legroom. Not a lot of footroom under the seats, but I do like that there's this huge glass sunroof. This can move, this can open. This is a pretty good spot to be, at least for right here. Now, why is there this in the middle? Typically, a middle seat in an EV is a good spot to be because you don't need this tunnel for like a transmission, but this one still has it for some reason. But then also, hey, look, a good thing, 90-watt USB-C and 2 more USB-A for charging stuff. Love seeing that. And then let's say you don't have a center passenger, no cup holders until you pop them out of the front there, little hidden things. So that's cool to see. Nice. I don't suppose you spend a lot of time in the back seat of your own car, but if you have passengers, obviously they'll appreciate the bare fundamentals of this interior, at least getting that done, right? Good headroom, because it's a nice shape. It doesn't slope back quite as much as something like a Model Y. But then, yeah, pretty quickly, you start poking around and feeling a lot of money saving, a lot of cheapness. Like this plastic all through the door, pretty cheap feeling. This, I mean, that's a normal switch, but plastic handle. And so I'm sitting on vegan leather seats, which is totally fine. There's lots of vegan leather materials, but it doesn't feel great. It's not poorly made. It's just not a great material. But let's just get to the front seat, because there's a lot more to talk about with the front seat. So here we go. Let's drive the VF8. Let's see what it looks like in the front seat. Again, this is actually a decently roomy. Why did it just flash the headlights? What was that? That was weird. Okay. Anyway, this is a very simple interior. Shades of Tesla, lots of money saving, except in one really interesting way, which I actually kind of like. So right in front of the driver, you've got this nice sized steering wheel with real buttons on it, and there's a little camera right here, which I'll talk about in a second, but there's no screen behind the steering wheel, okay? Regular stocks with shockingly little travel. It's kind of hard to explain that, but no screen back here, right? Very much looking like Model 3. Just have a screen over here with all your software. But then there's also an HUD. So I think when I see no screen in front of the wheel, I think, of course, less screens, saving money, but an HUD. I don't know, maybe Tesla should be taking notes from the Vinfast. So I like that there's an HUD. Then you look at the rest of the inside of this car and, it's got the plastic, it's got normal switches here, really simple layout. Physical volume knob is actually kind of nice. You can have your hazards on, window lock, your gears here, 2 cup holders, and a wireless charging pad that fits a giant ultra-sized phone with 2 USB ports there. One for battery, one for data. Cool. Real HVAC controls is another huge thing. A lot of these EVs that are copying Tesla are trying to do everything on the screen, and because of how bad this software is, I'm happy that there are real HVAC controls. Nice little mirror up there.
Yeah, the software.
Sunriser is pretty big. And hey, just to give it credit on a couple more fundamentals, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and heated and ventilated front and rear seats. Look at this. Front seats, heat them up. Rear seats, cool them down. That goes for right and left, front and back. Not too many other complaints about this extremely simple front. Other than this vegan leather is not the best. It's, especially seeing this huge swath of it right in front of you, you kind of look at that a lot when you're driving. But that's where it starts to get a little bit, as Doug would probably say, quirky. Driving this car, living with this car, lots of quirks. So first of all, the key fob, walking up to the car with the key fob in your pocket, nothing happens. Same as the Fisker. This is, it's kind of unresponsive. You have to hit the button to unlock the car. Once you get in, fine, you're in. I've noticed a couple times I got in the car and it was making this weird sound from the air conditioning in the corner of the car for a couple of seconds. I'll play a clip. So yeah, not really sure what that's all about.
That happened to me only, I had the car, let's say I had the car, I think a total of 11 days. I had a Vinfast 8. And that happened to me 3 times in the morning. I didn't drive the car every day. I just pretty much drove my regular truck depending on where I was staying at the time. But yeah, it sounded like it was another fan inside the fan that was kicking off for a little while. And I looked in the owner's manual, see if it was normal. I thought it was like the Hyundai where when you first start those up, the oil pools from the bottom of the oil pan into the engine, and you can hear that noise. There was a big whoop-to-do about that in the Hyundai. Was it a Genesis? I think it was a Hyundai Genesis. But yeah, it was one of those situations where you know, and of course, that's the big thing about R&D of these vehicles. The research and development, I always have to say, it has been lacking for several years. Back in the day, and then, of course, research and development has been lacking for quite some time. But back in the day, at the very least, they would spend some decent amount of time testing out these vehicles, putting these vehicles through their paces. Whereas nowadays, very little of that is done. Very little of that is done, and very little time is spent. Whereas, running these new technologies in these cars, seeing how long they're gonna last, seeing how how they react under certain conditions, weather conditions, longevity conditions. Research and development has taken a big step back in the making of new vehicles and the making of new cars, and it's going to become even a bigger problem with EV vehicles. These EV vehicles are getting thrown together massively quickly, you know, and they're electronic. They're completely all electronic. So it's gonna be the little things. It's gonna be the software issues. It's gonna be the bad wiring connectors that you're gonna have to dig deep into the vehicle to find. It's those things that are gonna make the maintenance on these vehicles an extreme hassle, or what to do for the mechanics of the future.
About. But then you get in, and again, all of your software, all of your interacting with the car is here. So there's no power button needed, which I love. All you do is put your foot on the brake, and the first thing it's going to do is beep at me an obnoxious number of times. Turn the car on. Nice. All the lights. And then it tells you to buckle up often. Great. Okay. Thank you. Once you're in, this is what your software looks like. This is giving me shades of like Kindle Fire 2013. All right, the layout is actually fairly intuitive, but it's just the graphics and the way it looks, which are a little bit odd, a little cartoonish and colorful. So this is your home screen, which is literally apps over here, like shortcuts to quickly use apps, and then widgets. And you can literally hold them down and remove or add widgets or change wallpapers like an old Android tablet, which, again, it's intuitive, it works, it's just I don't know, it's a little cartoony, I guess. These are all of the preloaded apps. It literally looks like a Kindle Fire. It's got Asphalt 9 preloaded, Baja Big Air preloaded, Nancy Drew for some reason preloaded. But these are all the apps that come with the car. So you have the normal EV stuff. You have your normal driver aids, which are extremely annoying and go off all the time, beeping while you're driving. I love turning them off because that's seriously the best thing you can do when driving this car. And then you can pair up a phone and make calls and everything like that. It's all here. It's just, you can see what I'm talking about, right? Like, it looks like an old Android tablet, and when I'd rather have like a new tablet from 4 years ago, then I don't know. But okay, you can see up here now the HUD looks pretty good.
One of my favorite things about I have an old Durango that I mainly love to drive. And one of the main things I love about it is I put like a computer system in it with this Enon. It's called an Enon. It's an 8-inch screen computer system, and it pretty much resembles how that system was in the Vinfast. Pretty much almost exact same widget system. Of course, mine is tapped into my ECM, the computer of the vehicle, so it can read the mileage and the temperature. It can control the fans and all that kind of thing. But it's almost the exact same, widgety computery system, just like that. So so I'm saying that to say that I know that that the system itself, without the ECM connection, is a pretty cheap system. I would hope. I was trying, because there's a couple of web systems that you can change mine into, and I was trying to change the VinFast one into another system like that, but of course it wouldn't let you because it's integrated into the car's system. So you have to use this basic modern system to control the car. So it is just a really, really basic intro level tablet, like that. Yeah, it's weird.
Because that's seriously the best thing you can do when driving this car. And then you can pair up a phone and make calls and everything like that. It's all here. It's just, you can see what I'm talking about, right? Like, it looks like an old Android tablet, and when I'd rather have like a new tablet from 4 years ago, then I don't know. But okay, you can see up here now the HUD looks pretty good. It'll show you your speed, how many miles you have left. All that is great. But here's my least favorite thing about the software in this car. Number one, the cameras are weirdly low frame rate. I'm just going to drive and see if you can see on camera. If I drive forward, oh, that's another thing the Fisker does. It makes you buckle up before it takes the parking brake off, so you can't put it in drive and take the parking brake off. Okay, sorry. Drive, low frame rate camera. I don't know if you can tell. It's not great. You can at least see things pretty well, especially the reverse camera. Just weirdly bad, like 1990s bad. But okay, fine. That's your camera. Then the other thing is go into drive modes here, and there is almost no difference between normal and sport. Now, eco driving will get you your most range, and this car is seeing like 200 to 230 miles on a full charge. It's indicating more right now, but that's a pretty optimistic estimate. Normal and sport, they're almost identical. I've found that this car has a little bit of a delay in the inputs, and I think it's intentional. So hear me out. When you're switching from a gas car to an electric car, the number one difference with the electric car is usually the instant torque. Okay, sorry. So the instant torque of an electric car, which is usually what makes it fun. This car has a programmed in delay. I think it's programmed in. So if you stomp on the accelerator pedal in normal or in sport, it like lurches on and builds the power up. And I don't see the point in that. I mean, I get that you're trying to make people switching from a gas car feel more at home and more comfortable, but part of the nice thing about an EV is that instant torque. I don't want it to have to build up. It does that in both of those driving modes. Creep mode is supposed to be whether or not you go forward or backwards when you take your foot off the brake. I've found that in creep mode on or off, when I take my foot off the brake, I still roll backwards on hills. That is really weird. That's also true about the Fisker. And then regen braking, again, is a little bit uneven. So high regen braking, which is nice, that gives you the most efficient driving and the best regen. It's not totally one pedal because it'll slow down to like 3 or 4 miles an hour and then take a while to get to 0. I wish the pedal tuning was a little bit smoother and more intuitive in general. There's also a ton of float to the suspension. Somehow this weighs 1,000 pounds more than a Model Y. The steering is very vague. There are all sorts of points where I feel like my input is not steering as much as I think it should. Or sorry, my input is more than I think it should be to steer the amount that I am. Just not a fun car to drive dynamically in any way. I'll put it that way. Which is fine. That might be totally cool with you. But in its competition, which is like Ioniq 5, Model Y, Mustang Mach-E, EV6, way better driving dynamics. And that just kind of speaks to this being a new vehicle for this company. And honestly, I think that's really the theme that summarizes it. You know, a lot of you guys are saying this is a worse car, this will be the worst car I ever test. I don't think it is. It's not as buggy. It's just laggy on its face and a little bit behind the times as far as what you expect from a modern EV, like that throttle input and chassis tuning and things like that. But if you ask me which I would take, I would take this. But I think a more important question is, would you actually spend $50,000 on this car when you could get an older Model S, or you could get a 3 or 4 year old car that's much more refined? Or even today, honestly, you could get a Model Y for $55,000. And is there any reason to consider this one over those? Let me know. I kind of feel like Vinfast is despite being a gigantic company, they're at the mercy of being new to EVs, and they're going to have to get better at this over time, but we shall see. We'll let it play out. I just wouldn't recommend this car for right now. Okay, I did it though. I lived with it, I reviewed it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
All right. I mean, we get the gist of it. You know, I thought, honestly, thought that it'd be worse than that. So we're gonna turn off the check. We're gonna turn off the check engine light. Vinfast doesn't get the check engine light. They seem like, I mean, they don't have. They definitely don't have all the quirks that the Fisker had. So, of course, we will review that again at the end of the show. But um, right now, what I wanted to do was just, you know, do a short soliloquy on the future of the street mechanic and what. I don't have any videos or anything like that, but what we've been experiencing a lot in this day and age is that the street mechanic is dying out. We've already seen pretty much all the Sears auto centers are gone. There's only a couple of minor keys available these days. Most of the Midas locations are gone. And the days where you'd find that guy down the street or around the corner that could change out your muffler or your catalytic converter or could throw an alternator in your vehicle or becoming a thing in the past. And it's becoming a thing in the past specifically because, you know, manufacturers have decided that, you know, with technology the way it is, it's, you know, you're going to, the knowledge that you need to fix these new cars, specifically EV cars, pretty much all cars. The knowledge that you need to fix these cars is broadening on a daily basis. We always were saying inside my dealership when in one of my dealerships where we started getting the ID4s. Um, yeah, the once we started getting the Volkswagen ID4s, and they were showing us how what needed to happen to repair them, and you know the computer systems you needed to fix them, and how expensive these systems were. We realized very quickly that you know the guy down the street ain't gonna be able to fix your EV car. That's for sure. You're gonna definitely have to take these cars to the dealership to get them fixed, and it's you know I always say the automotive industry is pretty much a mirror of life industries. Um, you know, corporations are starting to push out the little man again. And don't get me wrong, the when it comes to the production of EVs and the production of EV vehicles that will become available to us to buy, um, they're small, you know, people or groups that are creating these EVs. And of course, Exeter comes to mind. I'm a big fan of Exeter, big fan of Derek Bailey. Um, but even in that situation, you know, you're going to have some expert knowledge to, um, you know, some expert knowledge to get these vehicles fixed. Um, and it's not something that, you know, me as a street mechanic or, you know, I have a lot of friends that are mechanics that have opened their own, you know, mobile auto repair centers where, you know, they bought a van or a truck and they drive to your house and change out your brakes and change your oil and stuff like that. And it's been very lucrative for them. And they will continue to be able to do these small things, tires, batteries, brakes, oil changes. But it'd be the bigger things. It'd be the bigger problems, the transmission problems, the engine problems, the electrical issues. Those are the things that are going to keep the manufacturers and the dealerships more lucrative than the small mom and pop repair shops that are still available now. Now, I honestly believe that COVID was used to some degree to, you know, COVID, I thought, and this is just some conspiracy series shit, so please don't ban me if you don't like what I'm saying. But I think COVID, a big factor of COVID, or a big factor of the conspiracy of COVID was that, you know, major corporations were not allowed, but major corporations destroyed a lot of small mom and pop corporations at that time. Several mom and pop shops and locations, where it be repair shops, grocery stores, all these things, not grocery stores so much, but I guess they really tried to, when they started to, when they dictated who could be open, when they said, all right, well, you can stay open, but you doing the same thing over there, and you got to close. That in itself was conspiracy shit to me. I mean, if you knew that you had to make money and the government was not allowing you to make money, and they was allowing another company that was doing the exact same thing as you to make money, that in itself is some conspiracy messed up shit right there. And at the time, and of course I dealt with it in the automotive industry. And during COVID, they shut down my repair shop. Or I worked at a couple. They shut down one of my repair shops for a couple months. Said that auto repair shops were vital, so they let us open back up. We could only open back up for so many hours. Could only have so many customers. Blah blah blah. You had to do so much to the car to make sure that you weren't contaminating the car. Blah blah blah. It really did put me in a position where, I really gave me that idea that COVID was some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. It is what it is. I mean, the way they conducting it as a business, if you were in business at that time, and the way they were conducting it, how the favoritism that they were showing some businesses and they weren't showing other businesses, showed me that, to allow certain business to thrive at a time where you are not allowing other businesses to be open is a major problem for me. It was a major problem for me, the whole COVID situation. But I digress. What I'm saying is that in the future, specifically as it pertains to EV vehicles, they're going to phase out street mechanics. They already stated that they're going to, at some point, 2029, 2035, I don't know what they say now. They've changed it a couple times. But at some point, they want that the majority of vehicles on the road to be EV vehicles. Now, they say they want that because, the ecosystem, or, less pollution, whatever the reason is. All they're going to do is put a lot of, if it happens, it's going to put a lot of mom and pop repair shops out of business because they're going to not be able to work on EV vehicles. It's going to take a lot of regular cars off the road. So what is that going to happen? People who can't afford EV vehicles, they're not going to be able to drive. I mean, there's so many impactful situations that are going to occur if the way they want EV systems to continue to thrive happens. It's going to affect so many people in so many ways. So that's my spiel. Just wanted to throw that out there. So mechanics, get your electronics on, man. Y'all gonna have to learn how to work with these technologies. Y'all gonna have to work on these electric vehicles. Y'all gonna have to become electricians. So, study cybersecurity, study, application programming, get your knowledge up, because they're going to try to phase y'all out. Most of us old cats ain't got to worry about it. We'll be way gone before that. But you young mechanic cats, you got to get your electronics up. Get your EV up, do your EV studies, because they're going to try their best to get rid of what's making you money. the regular car. All right, so let's get back to it. Last but not least, we're gonna see if autofocus
When we first arrived,
Fisker. All right, so a couple weeks ago we did the downfall of Fisker show, where we looked at all the aspects of Fisker as they fall. I mean, we talked about their stock price. We talked about the review that MKHBD did about Fisker, that even the Fisker higher ups was worried about. Also, we talked about how Fisker was trying to get in with another auto manufacturer. Let's see if they got that. But yeah, I mean, Fisker has been going through it. That's what we were talking about. We talked about how Fisker is trying to partner with other automakers. Talked about how Fisker's dropped their prices, dropped what they the amount that they thought they were going to make in their next quarter, and it's been downhill from there for Fisker for quite some time. But so, and of course, it was a big thing because even we put out as autofocus and MKHBD did something to Fisker. They kind of canceled them with their review. Fisker pretty much proved that when they contacted the dealership that let MKHBD use to do the review. So MKHBD came back with another review of Fisker, and this is a review after Fisker has come out with the update that they needed that was supposed to fix a lot of the problems that Fisker's having with their vehicles. So we're going to review that review. I haven't seen it yet, and we're just going to review it in real time. We're going to get y'all out of here. All right, let's check this out. Look at Cuz's face.
Okay, so it's a little different. I've never reviewed a car twice before. So you guys may remember a bit of a, I guess at this point, infamous video that I did, but it was about a month ago where I reviewed the Fisker Ocean. The Fisker Ocean was the worst car I've ever reviewed. It still is, and that's what I called the video. But really there were just a ton of things about the vehicle that were annoying or unsafe or didn't work well or just a laggy, buggy mess. Okay, so a lot has happened since then, you might have seen. Besides all of the craziness of the accusations of me bankrupting the company or trying to, or caring at all about the stock price, which I don't and never have, I do want to say that this is a really weird spot for this EV because of all that's happening with the company. So, okay, let me explain. I'm a product person. I care about the product. And the Ocean that I reviewed, that I got, that was on the road, was running an older piece of software. And so the first thing that came up, even though there was a ton of things wrong with the car, the first thing that came up in some of the comment sections were, well, actually, there's a newer version of software that's about to be available. And if you had waited a little longer, you would have actually been able to experience that, and maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. And so this, what I have here behind me, is a Fisker Ocean with the newest 2.0 software. So they reached out, Fisker themselves said, hey, we have a new one with the new software, you want to check it out? And so I said, all right, sure, I'll give it a shot. But I should also give you a little more background just because, well, the other part of...
Is that proof that... No, I guess it's just proof that they were scared and that they knew how important his review was in the grand scheme of things. It just proves that we're right, that even a YouTube review could affect a company at its highest markings to the point where they see it and they come back to try to fix their image, as it were, with that same reviewer. So it just shows that we're right, that the cancel culture can get to anybody.
If it is Fisker as a company may or may not be around to update existing cars. See, the thing that happened with the original Fisker Ocean is they had a bit of a problem where they were unable to update their cars via over-the-air software updates, which is kind of an issue, right? Considering these cars are basically computers on wheels, and so many of them, bunch of lights, so many of them get software updates on the regular to make them better, right? But the older Fisker Oceans that were out there, they had this issue with the software where they could not be updated over the air. So in order to get this newest big 2.0 update, Fisker has to send a technician out to you, to every single one of these cars, to manually update them to get them on the newest version of the software, which would ordinarily just kind of be a hurdle or an inconvenience. But now that Fisker, the company, may not exist very soon, it is really tough to say that this is going to change anything about my recommendation of the car. Nevertheless, you may be curious about if this big 2.0 update has actually improved the car. And just to show you guys what that looks like, you go down here to software and you can see this is Fisker Ocean version 2.0. And there's a couple other, there are some customers that are, I guess, starting to have technicians go out to them. We'll see how many people actually end up with 2.0. But I think the real question that you probably were curious about, and that I was curious about when I at least said yes to this review, was, okay, does the stuff that was terrible about the original Fisker Ocean actually get fixed with this software update? So I'll answer that. Now first, you may actually realize that this is a physically different car. Fisker has brought a white Ocean here, and I actually think this one looks even better than the other one. I know the other one had matte paint, but I think this color Fisker Ocean with the black wheels looks pretty good. And they have this recycled carbon in the wheels, which again it's mainly for aerodynamics, but I think looks even better than the other wheels. So this is a different spec of a Fisker, but I still think it looks pretty solid. Kind of got this little Aston Martin look, which doesn't surprise anyone if they know about where the design comes from. But first things first, I had issues with the key fob. Are they fixed? Well, this top button is supposed to engage California mode. It didn't in the car I reviewed, but now on this car, if I hold it long enough, it does. It does actually open the front windows, the back windows. These unique little tiny rear 3/4 windows, they actually open, and the back glass rolls down, and as you can see, this top piece of glass is now totally open. So yes, California mode does work on this one now, and I think if I hold it again, it'll close everything up. So that's good. Actually, I don't think it does. Okay, it does. Closes everything up. But the other issue I had with the key is that walking up to it wouldn't do anything, and I have to unlock a few times to still get into the vehicle. That didn't fix. So I still had many issues with walking up and having to wake up the car and unlock and get in. Key fob, not fixed. But then once I got in, there were a whole bunch of software and driving related things that had issues. So first of all, if you boot up the car, you might get any number of notification lights and then chimes, and then you wait for those to be over. That still happens. And there's this new issue where, I guess it's kind of an issue, but not the end of the world, where the car takes a long time to boot up. This big vertical screen in the middle, you can just watch a boot animation for it feels like a solid 60 seconds while the car turns on. You can drive it while it's booting up, and if you reverse, it actually does flip the cameras on, but it's weird that it takes that long now to boot up. It's like a new issue introduced with 2.0. But okay, fine. You wait, it boots up, you get into the car. Now how's it doing? I put my foot on the brake, it turns on, and I put the car in drive, and try to drive away, but my seatbelt's not on, nothing happens. It kind of wobbles back and forth. That still doesn't allow me to take the parking brake off without my seatbelt on, which leads me to believe it's kind of a feature, as annoying as it is. No other car other than the Vinfast VF8 that I just tested does that to me. Once you do that, you can shift into gear and actually drive. This front screen in front of the driver turning completely red or completely blue based on acceleration or deceleration is also unchanged. It still flashes back and forth between red and blue, which is a bit distracting, especially at night, and when it's flashing right back and forth at that peak between acceleration and deceleration, it's really annoying. But then issue number 3 I had with Bluetooth, one of the few cars I've ever driven where literally just pairing to Bluetooth with my phone had issues, that was fixed. So I was able to pair my phone first try. It's now connected super easily and it has not cut out on me once in the week that I've been using it. Okay, Bluetooth is fixed. Another thing, this car above my head has a bunch of solar panels. You can see here, this glass roof, totally taken up by a bunch of solar. On the old car, you literally couldn't see any details about how much energy that was generating, how many miles it got you, literally nothing. This is one of the things they've added. So if you jump in here, now there's a tab in the top middle that says Solar Sky. And you jump in there and you actually get a live look at, well, it doesn't tell you much actually. It says solar rate is 32%. It doesn't tell you wattage or exactly what's happening, but okay, it's kind of a cloudy day. I think that makes sense. And then the lifetime of the car, how much energy you've generated. This has been one of my concerns with cars with solar roofs is they don't actually generate that much usable energy. For the lifetime of this car, which doesn't really mean much to you, it's generated 35 miles. I'll tell you that when we got this car a week ago, it had 29 miles. And it's been parked outside at every possible available opportunity, literally nonstop for the past week, and has gained almost 6 miles of range, which is, it's better than nothing, but it's, you know, it's a little less than a mile a day, just so you know. Oh, another big feature, there was no hill hold or brake hold in the first car that I drove. Now, if I drive forward a little bit and I hit the brake pedal and I stop, you get this H here. Hill hold works. Brake hold, thankfully works. This car does not roll around forward and backward on hills. You wouldn't believe how annoying it was that a car would actually do that to me. So, thankfully, that's also fixed. But then I just want to say that, in general, the liftoff regen in this car needs tuning still. It needs calibration. There's been a lot of people talking about literal brake failure while you're decelerating with liftoff regen. I don't know if I'd call it failure, but it feels exactly the same as failure, where if you go over a bump, it will stop the regen and then re-continue after the bump. So if I'm decelerating towards a stoplight and a stopped car, and I go over a bump, it kind of feels like the car lurches forward and continues, and may actually feel like you're going to hit the car in front of you. That's not fixed. And also, just the different drive modes, again, it's Earth, Fun, and Hyper. Earth being the slowest. Can't believe they didn't do Earth, Wind, and Fire. Earth being the slowest, Fun being the middle, and Hyper being the fastest. They all deliver what feels like the same amount of power, just with a delay. And I had some people say in the comments, this is actually a feature because in a safety event, you want to be able to get full power to accelerate out of something. And I get that, I understand that, I just don't think you need full power. I think you need a more tuned calibration of the accelerator pedal so that when you roll onto acceleration and off of it, you have a more predictable sense of what you're doing. Because in this car, you'll smack the accelerator pedal and nothing happens for 2 seconds and then it hurls forward. That doesn't feel like the slow mode. So I still feel like that needs a lot of work. Now, the random beeping and issues and beeps and bops that I was getting from the ADAS systems were greatly reduced. Not fully to zero, but mostly reduced in a way that it's not painfully annoying to just drive around anymore. So that was fixed with software. And actually, one of the things I didn't even notice, but that is actually going to matter to these cars, is once you get 2.0, now you can start getting over-the-air downloadable software updates again, and you will be able to be plugged in while updating. You couldn't do that before. So I think in general, there's a lot of things about this car that, yes, can be improved and fixed with software, but a lot of it still comes down to the fact that this is Fisker's own software. It doesn't have Android Auto, it doesn't have CarPlay, and it's still a bit of a laggy, buggy mess. You know, I can get the reverse camera or the 360 camera on after some time. If I rotate the whole thing by pressing this button for a couple seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to rotate the UI and be usable again, and there's still just more delay than I would expect for a new car that costs $50,000, $60,000. This is the main thing that I think, if Fisker is to continue to exist, that they will need to work on for this car to be acceptable. Oh, and there are a bunch of people who actually didn't realize this because I didn't say it in the video, so I'll just point it out now. Just like the Rivian, there are no glove boxes in this car. There is the trays that I talked about, one taco tray here and one taco tray stuffed in there, but they do actually have under-seat storage the same way the Rivian also does. It just doesn't have trays. So if you twist this knob right here, this door opens and there's a slot for under-seat storage. If you want to drop some paperwork in there, or your hand sanitizer, or your microfibers, or whatever, you have at least a little spot there. And again, I want to make a note. This is a nice piece of hardware. Like, these seats are very comfortable. All this recycled material in here, I think that's why they call it the Ocean, and why a lot of the stuff they're proud of is in the materials department. But it's really well made. Nothing feels like it's gonna fall off or anything like that. Yes, this mirror is still tiny, incredibly small, but you do have nice soft microfibers. And yeah, there are plastics, but I don't mind that. I think this is a really nice interior, especially visually speaking, other than that. So look, I'm glad I was able to give the Fisker Ocean a second chance, and I was able to actually see some real improvements, and I can applaud them for that. I still also think that the fundamentals of this vehicle are solid. Like I've said, it has a decent battery, it has a decent profile, I think it looks okay. But I think the questions we're sort of thinking at the end here are, number one, is it still the worst car I've ever reviewed? Honestly, if you look back at my channel now, at what I've been able to review, yes, it is still the worst car I've ever reviewed, but it's not by much. I have reviewed an original Tesla Roadster and a Vinfast VF8, but I would still take those over this. But two, does this even matter? Does this improvement to a company that may not exist in a couple of days even matter anymore? And that I really don't know the answer to. I've been able to experience real change, which I'm happy about, but I still don't feel like I am able to recommend this version of this car, given the state of the company and everything happening to it. That's at least my fair warning for those who were considering a Fisker Ocean. And even if you're an owner now, have you gotten 2.0 software? Are you going to get 2.0 software? Tough to say. Nevertheless, this has been a quick update for those of you asking. Yeah, some things have changed. All right. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.
No, hopefully I ain't got no reverb. If a check engine light is flashing, that means that bad things are happening. Okay? Check engine lights flashing, that means that your engine is about to die, your transmission is about to die, there's something majorly wrong with your vehicle, and guys, the Fisker check engine light is flashing a lot. Now, like you said, there's a lot of questions on if the company's even going to be around here in the near future. They've already talked about the closing of the company. Stock prices continue to fall. No other automakers are willing to partner with them, so it's a bad time. It's a really bad time for Fisker. So check engine light definitely is on. It's definitely flashing. I definitely feel sorry for them. They've tried their best. I mean, it's a great looking product. Great looking product. But the big problem
that a lot of EV manufacturers are going to be running into is the software that you need for these vehicles to run. That's why the need for, you know, programmers, software engineers, cybersecurity engineers, all these programs are up because of the way technology is advancing, and it's very major in the automotive industry. So, you know, if you don't have the top-notch software engineers with you in your camp, then there's a high likelihood that you're going to run into a lot of software problems that you're going to have to deal with. Like he said, you know, most of these EVs, specifically Tesla, I know for sure, uh, do software updates consistently all the time. There's always a software update to fix a software problem in their vehicles, and the beauty of it happening, you know, over the airwaves is such a plus for most EV owners. It's a plus for the EV dealership and the EV technicians. I mean, you ain't even got to bring your car into the shop, so we don't even got to see you. But cars that come out without that ability, like the Fisker, in the future, they're going. And you know, I honestly I see a situation where an EV company decides that it doesn't want to do software updates over the airwaves because they want you to come to the dealership. If you come to the dealership, what? It's just like going to the store. You might buy something you don't need. You know, you might get an update you don't need. You might trade that car for another car. There's so many reasons why a manufacturer would want to get you into the dealership, you know, and the service department was one of the biggest ways to get you into it. I don't even see why they even tried to get away from that, because it was essential for not only the sale of the cars, the upsell of things for the cars. You know, the service departments, it's the rock of dealerships. It is, once a car is sold, it is literally the only reason that person that you sold a car would come back to your dealership, is if something's wrong. And that's why service departments, that's why all mechanics are very important, and they should not be taken lightly. So, you know, that's my spiel. Love my mechanics. They love me. That's what we do. That's how we make our money, and that's how we continue to make our money, by making sure that people's cars are running. That's what we do. So, all right, my friends. As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you for tuning to another episode of the Car Concierge Show. Like and subscribe. We're going to get more consistent with the shows. We're going to start putting out shows just telling you what you need to do to make sure your car life situation is always perfect. I'm your boy Chris C. Pup Surratt, and I'm out. Peace.